The first call lasted only 11 seconds. According to police records, it happened 2 days after 20-year-old Daniel Mercer disappeared somewhere along Route 81 in western Pennsylvania. At the time, investigators already believed Mercer was likely dead. His abandoned car had been discovered near a wooded access road 30 miles outside Millfield. The doors were unlocked. The engine was cold. His phone, wallet, and backpack were still inside the vehicle. There were no signs of violence, no footprints nearby, no evidence suggesting he had willingly left the area. Then his mother received a call from Daniel's number 48 hours later. At first, she assumed police had found him. Instead, she heard heavy static. Wind. And Daniel quietly asking a strange question. "Why are you still looking for me?" The line disconnected immediately afterward. Police originally believed somebody had stolen Mercer's phone from the abandoned vehicle, but investigators later confirmed something disturbing. Daniel's phone never moved. Cell tower data showed it remained inside police evidence storage the entire time. That detail alone turned the case into a source of local rumors for years. Then similar incidents began appearing elsewhere. Different states, different victims, different disappearances. But eventually, investigators noticed the same pattern emerging repeatedly. The calls always happened after search operations intensified, and the missing person almost always sounded confused. Not frightened, not panicked, confused. A woman who disappeared during a winter hiking trip in Colorado called her husband 4 days after being declared missing. According to voicemail archives later released online, her voice sounded weak and distant. The first thing she asked was, "Why did you leave without me?" Search teams had never stopped looking for her. Another recording came from a 15-year-old boy who vanished near a campground in Oregon during the summer of 2014. 3 days after his disappearance, his older sister received a voicemail from his number shortly after midnight. The message lasted 26 seconds. At first, only static could be heard. Then the boy quietly whispered, "Something keeps walking around outside." His breathing became shaky afterward. Then he added one final sentence. "I don't think it knows I'm awake." Police never explained why the voicemail metadata showed the message had been sent from a disconnected number, no longer active within the carrier's network. As more recordings surfaced online, people began noticing another detail. Background sounds rarely matched the locations where victims disappeared. One caller vanished in Arizona. Yet during analysis of the recovered voicemail, audio experts identified what sounded like distant foghorns somewhere behind the speaker. Another missing person disappeared while camping alone in northern Canada. But during a later phone call to relatives, traffic noise and subway announcements could allegedly be heard faintly beneath the static. Families began sharing recordings privately through forums and online groups dedicated to unexplained disappearances. That was where investigators first encountered what became known unofficially as The delay. According to multiple families, missing individuals often seemed unaware time had passed normally. Several callers spoke as if only minutes had gone by since disappearing. One woman apologized for being gone all afternoon, despite missing for nearly 3 weeks. Another caller casually mentioned it still being daylight outside during a conversation that occurred at 2:13 in the morning. A retired detective later described the calls as deeply unsettling for one specific reason. The missing people never sounded like captives. They sounded misplaced, as if they genuinely believed they were still somewhere familiar. That detail became far more disturbing after the Keller recording surfaced online in 2019. The audio came from 28-year-old Grace Keller, who disappeared while driving home from work during severe rainstorms outside St. Louis. Search teams located her car beneath an overpass the following morning. The windshield wipers were still running. The driver's side door stood open. Grace herself was nowhere nearby. 5 days later, her younger brother received a call from her number at approximately 1:17 a.m. The conversation lasted almost 3 minutes. Unlike previous recordings, the call contained unusually clear audio. Grace sounded exhausted, disoriented. At several points during the conversation, she repeatedly asked her brother why everybody sounded so worried. Then she suddenly became quiet. For nearly 10 seconds, neither person spoke. Eventually, her brother asked where she was. Grace answered softly, "I keep seeing people standing beside the road." The line crackled heavily afterward. Then she continued, "They only move when I stop looking at them." Investigators later noted her breathing changed dramatically after that sentence, as though she had started noticing something nearby. Her brother repeatedly begged her to describe where she was. Grace responded with something police never released publicly until years later. According to archived transcripts leaked online, her final words were, "I don't think they want me talking to you anymore." The call disconnected immediately afterward. It was the longest verified call connected to the phenomenon. Online discussions surrounding the disappearances grew rapidly after the Keller recording leaked. Most people assumed the calls were elaborate hoaxes, until telecom engineers publicly admitted several recordings contained technical inconsistencies impossible to explain easily. Multiple calls appeared to route through inactive towers. Some lacked proper connection histories entirely. Others remained too short to establish stable carrier authentication, despite containing minutes of uninterrupted audio. One engineer anonymously claimed certain calls behaved less like cellular communication and more like recordings trying to become phone calls. That statement spread widely online after screenshots leaked to horror forums. Then came the detail that frightened investigators most. Families occasionally received follow-up calls after police officially declared the missing person deceased. In several cases, relatives stopped answering entirely. One father reportedly changed his phone number after receiving 17 separate voicemails from his missing daughter over the course of 8 months. Police later recovered copies of some messages from cloud backups. Most contained silence, static, breathing. But in one recording, the daughter could reportedly be heard asking the same question repeatedly. "Why is everybody acting like I'm gone?" The final confirmed incident connected to the phenomenon occurred last year. A dispatcher in rural Iowa received a direct emergency call from a woman reported missing nearly 6 months earlier. According to internal transcripts, the caller sounded calm, almost relieved somebody had answered. The dispatcher attempted tracing the location immediately. Then she asked the woman where she was calling from. There was a long silence. Eventually, the caller answered, "I don't know how to explain this place correctly." The dispatcher later stated that faint voices could suddenly be heard behind the caller during the conversation. Not 1 or 2 voices, hundreds, all speaking quietly at the same time. The missing woman stopped talking immediately afterward. Then another voice slowly spoke through the line. A male voice, very close to the receiver. According to the dispatcher's final statement, it said, "They're starting to remember they disappeared." The call ended seconds later,